Guys, what's up? So we discussed World War One, and then we have to discuss the Treaty of Versailles, and the resulting product was League of Nations. So just after World War One ended, the League came into existence, and it was on 10th January 1920, and it was the same day that the Treaty of Versailles came into operation. So let us discuss League of Nations in detail. So, as I was talking about the Paris Peace Conference, it is also known as Versailles Peace Conference, where Allied victors met and the peace terms for the defeated Central Powers were discussed individually for all the separate nations. Treaty of Versailles was for Germany, and it was very humiliating for Germany, and as a result, Adolf Hitler broke out of it approximately 10-15 years later. So, as discussed in World War One lesson, it took place in Paris during 1919. It involved diplomats from more than 32 countries and nationalities, and the League's headquarters was in Geneva, Switzerland. So that is the time when everything started in Switzerland. And one of its main aims was to settle international disputes to prevent World War from ever breaking out again. And as the whole world was horrified by the massive destruction which was called by World War One, but unfortunately League failed because World War Two happened. So who was the man behind it? He was the president Woodrow Wilson. Okay, so he sent the 14 points of Woodrow Wilson. They are very famous, and they were responsible for creation of a World Organization for Peace. So it was his brainchild. And at the Paris Peace Conference in 1919, Wilson, Cecil of Britain, and John Smuts of South Africa. So as you can see here, they all put forward their draft proposal, and Wilson's great contribution was to insist that the League Covenant, that is the list of rules by which the League was to operate, which had been drawn up by an international committee that includes Cecil, Smuts, Bourgeois, Paul Hemans of Belgium, as well as Wilson himself, should be included in each of the separate peace treaties. So this ensured that the League actually came into existence instead of just remaining as a discussion point. So it was Woodrow Wilson and other prominent men of his time. Now let us see the aims of the League of Nations. So it was basically to, the most important one was to encourage the cooperation in order to solve economic and social problems. So this was the first and the foremost League's role. Then to maintain the peace through collective security. Okay. So if one state attacked the another, the member states of the League would act together to stop the aggressor, either by economic or by the military sanctions. So that was the second role. Then the third is disarmament. So, as one of the chief causes for World War One was militarism and armaments, so League pursued a disarmament policy, that is, there will be no weapons and no war. So that is also very good. So obviously, without weapons, you can't fight war. You can fight it with clubs and swords, but that is about it. You will not be able to kill 80,000 people in one day. League also focused on diseases like malaria, leprosy, which were rampant in the world at that time, so as to improve the social conditions to control disease and improve lives. And finally, uh, to enforce the Treaty of Versailles was the goal. And world peace was that there should be no world war in future, but unfortunately it failed. Now let us see the structure of the league. So there were 42 member states at the beginning, and they increased to 55 by 1926 when Germany was admitted after 6 years. It had five main organs. First was General Assembly. Okay, so the first is the General Assembly, as you can see here. So this met annually. It contained representatives of all the member states, each of which had one vote, and its function was to decide general policy. And any decisions taken had to be unanimous, means everybody should agree. Okay, and second one was the council. So this was a much smaller body which met more often, at least three times a year, and it contained four permanent members like Britain, France, Italy, and Japan, and they enjoyed the veto powers as well. So as you can see here, and later on Germany was also included in the permanent members. So as you can see, there are five which are mentioned. So it was the council's task to deal with the specific political disputes as they arose, and again decisions had to be unanimous, just like the General Assembly. Then you have Permanent Court of International Justice here. So this was based at the Hague in Holland, like Netherlands, and consisted of 15 judges of different nationalities, and it dealt with legal disputes between states as opposed to the political ones. And it won respect for the idea that there was a place for a generally accepted code of legal practice even in international arena. Then you had the Secretariat. So Secretariat look after the paperwork, and it won respect for being high quality. Then there were a lot of commissions and committees. Like commissions included mandates, disarmament, slavery, and a number of these were formed to deal with specific problems. Like they included mandates, military affairs, minority groups, and disarmament. They were the problems after World War One. And there were committees for international labor, health, economic, financial organization, drug problems, women rights, child welfare. So the main function of the league was meant to be peacekeeping, and it was intended that it would operate in the following way. And any member which resorted to war, which will break the covenant, would face collective action by the rest of the members. So now let us see the main successes of the league. So the main successes were the health organization under the league helped in controlling leprosy and malaria. So it helped to control some of the diseases. It helped in tackling slave trade prevailing in Europe that time, and also it cracked down on drug dealers. Then it took 500,000 prisoner of wars back to their homes. So POW means prisoners of wars. So that was a commendable thing. 5 lakh people returned to their homes. And then Finland and Sweden had a war over Aaland Islands. So it prevented the issue and to escalate into full scale war, and it brought the countries together. It solved the problem. Then again it solved the Corfu crisis in 1923. It was between Italy and Greece. I'll show you the maps later on. And it is significant that none of these disputes seriously threatened world peace, and none of the decisions went against a major state that might have challenged the league's verdict. Then World Organization was created, and one of the most successful was the International Labour Organization under its French socialist director Albert Thomas. And the purpose of ILA was to improve the conditions of labor all over the world by persuading governments to fix a maximum working day and week, also specify adequate minimum wages so that they are assured of minimum wages, introduce sickness and unemployment benefit. Then there was refugee organization which solved the prisoners of war crisis, and valuable help was given to thousands of people who were fleeing from the Nazi persecution in Germany. Health organization did good work in investigating the causes of epidemics, and it was especially successful in combating a typhus epidemic in Russia, and otherwise it would have spread to the entire Europe. So it was doing some good work. Mandates Commission supervised the government of the territories taken from Germany and Turkey. Another commission was responsible for the disarmament. Okay, so it made no progress because it was a virtually impossible task to persuade member states to reduce armaments, even though they had all promised to do so when they agreed to the covenant. So now let us see the map of the Aaland Islands. So this is Gulf of Bothnia, and this is the Finland and Sweden, and this is the Aaland Islands. So the issue was resolved. Then this is the Corfu, and this is Greece and Italy, as you can see. So there were some issues over here as well. Now obviously World War II started 20 years later. So in one line, World War II meant that league failed completely. Okay, now let us see why did it happen. So Japan invaded Manchuria in 1932, and China approached the league back then, and the league took 1 year in arriving at decision. Obviously it was very late. It decided to impose economic sanctions on Japan, but Japan was doing trade majorly with the United States of America, so it was like not at all useful. Then Italy invaded Abyssinia, and there also league did not take proper action in Italy's invasion of Abyssinia. And Britain and France, who were major trade partners with Italy, were fearful because they were suffering back then. There was great economic depression also, so they could not afford to ban the trade with Italy because it would have caused loss to themselves. So basically there was petty national interest rather than having global interest also. They entered into secret understanding to allow the Italy to occupy Abyssinian land, and they did this to have Italy on their side because they were also fearful that World War II might break out, and they needed Italy on their side against war with Germany. This was a huge dent to the league, and Mussolini, Hitler, they were like very strong because they knew that league can be bent over, and they pursued their military goals because they sensed that league was weak. Then Hitler broke the Treaty of Versailles, and the first way Hitler broke the treaty was by having Germany's armed forces in 1934. He destroyed the League of Nations Disarmament Conference by demanding equality of arms with France and Britain, because this broke the treaty because it had set up the league with the stated aim of achieving disarmament. Now the second wave in which the Hitler broke the treaty was over the Rhineland issue, which was declared a demilitarized zone. And in 1936, Hitler moved his troops into the zone, claiming that the recent treaty between France and Russia threatened the Germany's safety, and his commanders had orders to retreat if the French army tried to stop them. But this time it was France who did nothing. So can you see, Britain, France, Japan, USA, everybody was broking it. The League of Nations were busy with the Abyssinian crisis. They did nothing, and obviously World War II was bound to happen. So now let us see As you can see, Japan is invading Manchuria. This is Japan, this is Manchuria, and then Italy was invading Abyssinia. So as you can see here, so these were the Italian campaign of 1995-1996. Now let us see why the league failed. The major reasons: it had no army of its own. This is the biggest thing. If you need United Nations or peacekeeping forces and all, so United Nations can send them, but league was unable to stop a stronger aggressor militarily. When the powerful country of USA did not join the league, they, like, this is a very important meme, like he created the League of Nations but did not join the League of Nations. So the league did not get much needed military and financial support because USA was very powerful country, if not the most powerful country. It became after World War II. Now decision making was very slow. It took 1 year. It took convincing every nation to come to the consensus. It was very hard. Then, like, one of the most important reasons which people forget, there was great economic depression going on in 1930s, and it ensured that Britain and France did not support its economic sanctions. Fifth point was that the league was closely linked with the Treaty of Versailles, and it was an unjust treaty. So it was obviously a very bad start for the league because Versailles Treaty was not at all fair, and it remained a French British affair largely. It was not at a global level, as other major nations left the memberships gradually. Now let us see, was it a complete utter failure? Answer is no. Basically, it was not a total failure because it gave the blueprint for United Nations, which was a much successful international organization continuing even after 70 years of its formation. Now league's permanent code became the inspiration for International Court of Justice (ICJ), which is in Netherlands, The Hague. Then International Labour Organization is a successful organization till date. Then WHO Foundation was led by the league's health committee. So that is why league was not a complete failure. So in this lecture, I have covered everything which you need to know about League of Nations. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel, An Academy, for awesome updates. And you can go to anacademy.com for watching awesome courses. Thank you for watching this. Have an awesome day.